free ferroelectrics to save the environment. So I am going to start with the history, little bit history that may create some interest. So as we know that in 1912, the Titanic that got sunk by having some impact through the iceberg. At that time, the people's now the people said that if at that time there was ultrasonic sonar system, then this might not be happened. Any problem? This might not be happened. So basically, if at that time there will be ultrasonic sonar system that is basically made up of some piezoelectric material, then this sinking of Titanic was not happened basically. So in the history, basically the direct piezoelectric effect, direct means when you put some pressure, put some stress on a material and it generates some charge or voltage, that is known as direct piezoelectric effect. That was basically discovered by Curie brothers in 1880 in quartz crystal. So as you all have used the gas lighter in our kitchen, that you put the pressure and you will get a spark which ignites the stove, gas stove. Similarly, the cigarette lighter, you put a pressure and it will ignite the flame, right? Similarly, when you kick the bike, then due to piezoelectric effect, the spark generated and it ignites the fuel to start the engine. Right? So that is the direct piezoelectric effect. That means by applying the pressure, you can generate some voltage or charge. So that can uh, 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 further ignite the process. And there is one more process, that is the converse piezoelectric effect, or the reverse piezoelectric, converse basically, in which when you apply the voltage, the dimensions of the material that will change. When you apply the external voltage on some material, the dimensions of the material will change. Means it may shrink or it may expand depending on the polarity you are applying to the material. And it was discovered in 1881 by Gabriel Lippmann. So now I'm going to start with some more interesting history of these materials. So basically during the World War First, that is in 1914, Germans have developed some underwater boats, and they took the advantage of those boats, and using those boats, they have created a lot of devastation. So to detect those underwater boats, it was very difficult at that time because of.
See, நீங்க சொன்னது 4 wheels, 4 wheeler. Correcta?
I think someone has not muted. Kindly mute yourself because it is creating disturbance. Okay. So to detect those underwater German boats, there was no ultrasonic technology at that time. So Dr. Paul Langevin, that is a professor in France, he took the challenge, right? And he took the Rochelle salt, that is basically sodium potassium tartrate, and he made some device with that single crystal Rochelle salt and used the same for ultrasonic detection. He succeeded, but the problem was that this sodium potassium tartrate is soluble in water and it is also degraded by the humidity. So to avoid that, at that time there was no perfect coating material which can coat this salt crystals so that they will not be able to degrade or get soluble in water. So during the Second World War, because of this problem in Rochelle salt, the people have developed barium titanate. That is a very important material, barium titanate. That is also a piezoelectric material. So during World War II, three different countries almost in the same time they have discovered this material. Different scientists in three different countries, mainly in US, UK and Russia. So they have developed this barium titanate material. So how they develop? Basically, they are developing some sort of composition of titanium oxide and magnesium oxide, and they are doping with some calcium, strontium and barium, and somehow they develop the barium titanate, and what they observe, that the permittivity they observe, that is 1000, that is 10 times higher than that of the titanium initially they are using. So that was the tremendous change, tremendous revolution in the area of piezoelectric materials. So after that, the people have started working on different materials like barium titanate. They started on work on calcium titanate, strontium titanate, then lead titanate, lead zirconate. So what they discovered, that particularly in a material that is also known as PZT in the short form, that is basically the combination of lead titanate and lead zirconate at different compositions, but the best one is for 50 to 48 to get the higher piezoelectric coefficient, and that was discovered by the Japanese scientists. So this is the very good material, that is PZT, lead zirconium titanate, but the problem is that that lead is toxic and we have to avoid this. But its properties are really tremendous for applications. So basically there are 5 figures of merit in piezoelectrics. So why I'm talking about piezoelectrics? Because ferroelectrics is also a part of piezoelectrics. So there are 5 important figures of merit in piezoelectrics. One is known as piezoelectric strain constant D, which is basically what? That is the induced strain. So somehow I misspelled here. It is the small x is equal to D into E. So small x is the induced strain and D is the piezoelectric strain constant and E is the external applied electric field. Second one is the piezoelectric voltage constant. That is equal to the relation is E is equal to G into X, where E is the induced voltage is equal to G. G is this piezoelectric voltage constant and X is the applied stress, external stress. And the third one is the electromechanical coupling factor, which is basically K, the square of K, that is equal to the stored mechanical energy upon input electrical energy and vice versa. So these are 3 very important. And besides these 3, there are 2 more: mechanical quality factor and acoustic impedance. But that is not so much required. But these 3 are very important for different type of applications. So basically this piezoelectric strain constant D, that is the figure of merit for actuator applications. Means you apply the electric field and accordingly what strain is produced. And the piezoelectric voltage constant is for sensor applications. So this is the basic diagram that you can see. The big green circle is composed of piezoelectrics. In green, there is a yellow circle that is composed of pyroelectrics, and in between there is a small blue circle that is the ferroelectric materials, right? So ferroelectrics. So this is very important, that all ferroelectrics are piezoelectric, not all piezoelectrics are ferroelectrics, right? So basically, as per the crystal structure, excuse me, sorry. Just Hello, sorry for the interruption. So are you able to see my screen again?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay, sorry because of this one important call. So what I am talking about, that in the crystal structure, there are basically 32 point groups that are related to symmetry, right? Out of those 32, 11 are centrosymmetric and 21 are non-centrosymmetric. This is important. So centrosymmetric and non-centrosymmetric. So in the case of non-centrosymmetric, basically in some unit cell, if you have that is composed of different atoms, and the center of positive charge and the center of negative charge, they are not coinciding, right? But in the case of centrosymmetric, because of symmetry, they get coincide and there is no polarity. But in the case of non-centrosymmetric, there is the chance of polarity. So out of 21, 20 are piezoelectric and one is non-piezoelectric, right? So out of 20 piezoelectric type, 10 are non-pyroelectric, 10 are pyroelectric, and out of pyroelectric, there are ferroelectric and non-ferroelectric. So I am this is the basic one. So I'm not going into the details of this one. So I have already given you the example of gas lighter. When you apply the pressure, you will get a flame due to piezoelectric effect. Similarly, nowadays people are using this material in abroad in the sole of our shoes, that whenever you walk, there will be the pressure on this piezoelectric material by your body, and it will generate small voltage that can be used to charge your electronic gadgets. So I am coming to this barium titanate. That is a very fundamental material. That what is its structure and how there is some sort of polarity that will be generated in these materials. So first figure in which you can see the red circles are barium atoms, the green one are oxygen, and the blue one is the titanium. So barium has the valency 2 plus, oxygen has 2 minus, and titanium has 4 plus, right? So barium atoms, they are at the corners of this unit cell, and oxygens are at the face centers, and titanium is at the center of this unit cell. So the first structure is cubic, right? So because of cubic, in this case, there is no separation between center of positive and negative charge. So what are the positive? The barium and titanium, and what is the negative? The oxygen. But somehow, if the structure is changed to tetragonal, so tetragonal means what? Two of the sides are same and one side is different. Means A is equal to B is not equal to C. So in this, you can see that one side is elongated in the upward direction, and because of that elongation, the titanium atom, which is at the center, that gets slightly displaced towards upward direction, and oxygen, which are at the face centers, they get slightly displaced downwards. And because of this change in structure, there is the generation of polarization, right? So in this manner, the center of positive and negative charge, they get separated and generate the dipole moment. And this type of structure is known as perovskite structure. I think everybody knows about this type of structure. So in the next figure, what I want to show you that I'm not going to the towards the upward figure that is for non-ferroelectrics. I am talking about the downward figure that is for ferroelectrics. So the central of the figure, that is for ceramic, in which you can see some sort of hysteresis loop between the polarization and electric field. So electric field is what you are applying externally on the material, and polarization is what? Polarization is the separation of center of positive and negative charges, that is known as polarization, that get induced, right? So it is similar to that of the ferromagnetic material, that is the plot between the applied magnetic field and the induced magnetization, right? In which you can see that after applying some external field, the polarization gets saturated, and after that it cannot increase. So if you again lower the electric field, it will reverse back, but it has some sort of retentivity and coercivity. So these are the basically important parameters that characterize the ferroelectric materials. So yeah, this one is important. So ferroelectrics are basically dielectrics. Dielectrics are basically insulators, but they have the tendency to get polarized under the application of applied electric field, right? So there are different materials like linear dielectric, paraelectric, ferroelectric, relaxer ferroelectric, and antiferroelectric. So all these have their different types of applications, right? In the linear dielectric, the plot between the polarization and the applied electric field is linear. In paraelectric, that is non-linear, but it's simple line. In the ferroelectric, basically you have some sort of hysteresis loop, right? Having some area. This type of ferroelectric that is known as relaxer ferroelectric, in which the loop is very slim. That is very important these days. I think someone's mic is unmuted. So please mute your mic. Yeah, it's fine. So in the case of relaxer ferroelectrics, the hysteresis loop is very slim, and these type of materials are used for energy storage purpose. I will come to this in my later slides. And the anti-ferroelectric material is having the loop, you can see, in which you can see the shaded portion with purple color, that is the energy storage purpose basically. So I will come to this in detail in my later slides. Now this figure is very important. So here we have a plot between the years of development of these materials, and on y-axis there is a very important parameter that is known as D33. That is picocoulomb per Newton is the units. Picocoulomb per Newton. Newton is the unit for force and picocoulomb is for charge. So after applying some external stress in newtons, how much charge get developed on the material, right? That is known as D33. That is known as piezoelectric coefficient, right? So here you can see the line in purple color, that is for lead based materials, and the line in blue color, that is for lead free materials, right? So you can see here that still the lead based materials have high D33 coefficients, but the lead free, they are nearly 4 times lower than that of lead based materials, right? So that's why this particular area of lead free ferroelectric materials is a novel area in which people are working tremendously to increase the D33 coefficient similar to that of the lead based materials, right? So I can tell you some names here that you can see. First one is barium titanate, second one is PZT, that is lead zirconate, then soft lead zirconate, PZN PT crystals, PMN PT crystals, then KNN sodium potassium niobate, NBT BT sodium bismuth titanate, and barium titanate. So there are a lot of materials on which people are working, but still the maximum value of D33 up to 2010 that is reported in lead free materials is 600, but in the case of lead based single crystals it is nearly 2500. So there is a huge difference. So that's why a lot of people are working to get higher value of D33 by doping, by modifying the synthesis process. So work is going on. So these are the materials having different applications. So I'm not going into this one. You can just search the Google and you can find that these ferroelectric materials have tremendous applications. Sorry, piezoelectric and ferroelectric, both materials have tremendous applications, and in daily life we are using them. In our mobile phone also, a lot of sensors, they are based on these piezoelectric and ferroelectric materials. And nowadays the data storage for storage purposes, nowadays solid state memories are coming. Those are based on ferroelectric memories. So why it is coming? Because the ferroelectric materials exhibit the hysteresis loop, right? Similar to that of the ferromagnetic materials. So now this magnetic storage is replaced by the ferroelectric materials, because in this case the data volatility is very less. So one important thing I want to share with you, that during first birthday of my son, I bought one small, like with the cake, I bought a very small system that display the tune of happy birthday, like this one, and that is a very small unit. There is no speaker. What I have seen, the speakers, those are made up of the magnet and diaphragm. And what we observe after the birthday, I took that particular small system and broke it. And what I found, that there is small crystal which is on some very small diaphragm. So I discussed with my friend that what may be this. Then he introduced that this is the some piezoelectric material by application of small voltage through a very small battery in that unit, that it will vibrate. After the application of electric field, its dimension will change and it will vibrate, and according to its vibrations, diaphragm will vibrate and you will get some music. So how these small, and the cost of that small unit was just, I don't remember exactly, but it is not more than 100 rupees, right? So how these type of materials, they are entered in our daily life. Like the next example is for our mobile phone. I have already discussed with you solid state memories, right? These piezoelectric materials, they are useful, very useful for ultrasonic motors and waves. And we can also get some infrared detection and thermometry using this pyroelectric. Pyroelectric is one of the type of these piezoelectric materials. Now I want to discuss, initially my topic is lead-free ferroelectric materials, but I have also worked on lead-based material, particularly for some DRDO project. So what we did, so we have prepared some high energy density PZT shockwave ferroelectric generators, which the other countries, developed countries, have already developed. So first of all, I want to tell you about the basics of this one, that what is the need for this one. So you can see a very small bottle here, plastic bottle. So using this plastic bottle, you can think about the size of the device. So in this device, basically the figure is there. You can see in green area, there is written ferroelectric element, right? Then on the left side, it is written explosive, then detonator, and on the right side, it is written electrodes. So basically, in this material, if a ferroelectric material, after the application of electric field, it get poled, that is known as poling. When you apply the electric field on a ferroelectric materials, its dipoles, they are arranged in one particular direction, that is the direction of the applied electric field. So this process is known as poling, right? So when they get poled in one particular direction, so they have arranged themselves in one particular crystal structure, right? And the charges are developed on the faces of this material. But somehow, if you apply very high pressure for a very small time, very high pressure for a very small time on this material, and what it will do, it will just change the crystal structure. It will change the dimensions of the crystal, very little change in the dimensions of the crystal, and correspondingly the crystal structure will change, and the charge stored on the faces of the material, it will be released. It will be released. This is a very important thing, that if you have a ferroelectric element, right, that get poled, already poled means it has already electric field is applied on that material and some induced charges are developed on the faces of that material, right? And when you apply a very high pressure for a very small time, that what it will do, it will change the dimensions slightly, very slight change in the dimension, and because of that change in dimension, the crystal structure will change, and when the crystal structure will change, it will release the charge hold. The charge holded by that crystal structure, it will release that charge. And within a small time, if you release a charge, you will generate a very high amount of current for a very small time. And that high current, that will generate high power microwaves. And those microwaves, If they travel in the nearby region in open, then it will destroy the electronic equipments. Means the electronic equipments, when the high current microwave passes through them, all the electronic equipments will be destroyed. So in this type of small device, if you put this type of device in the enemy area, then what will happen? It will destroy the electronics. And nowadays, most of the strategic means this condition in the enemy area, if we destroy their electronics, then they will 50%, not 50%, 70% they are defeated. Right? So in this means you will not be lethally defeated them, right? Just to fail their electronics and they will surrender. Right? So how this is the more basic structure of this material. And on the right side, you can see the phase diagram for this type of PZT material. So in the PZT, you can see there are different structures existing: orthorhombic, rhombohedral, low temperature, high temperature, tetragonal, monoclinic. So you have to choose the composition as per your requirement. So what we have chosen in our case, we have chosen the 95-5. I'm not able to show here, but 95-5 means 95% lead zirconate and 95% lead titanate, right? And because of that type of composition, the initial structure when we apply the electric field, that is ferroelectric. And when we apply the high pressure, how we apply the high pressure? We apply the high pressure by pulse, means shock wave generated by the explosive. Shock wave generated by the explosive. If somehow if you experience some sort of shock wave, like sometimes there is some sort of explosion in the space, or some sort of shock waves are generated during the plane movements in the sky, and your window panes, they slightly shattered, right? So that type of high pressure, when applied on the crystal for a very small time, the charge stored by the crystal will be released in a very small time. And you can see in the figure that the output voltage is nearly 18 kilovolts for few microseconds, 2 or 3 microseconds. So we have prepared these materials for DRDO, that is one particular lab, TBRL, in which we did the XRD, dielectric constant. Yes, one more thing important here is, for dielectrics, dielectric constant is very important parameter. Its value should be very high, right? So to maintain its insulating properties. But particularly in this case, we put the dielectric constant little lower. Why little lower? For the movement of charges. If the dielectric constant is very high, then it will not release the charges. So we have to make the dielectric constant little bit lower so that it can release the charges when the structure changes by the application of external electric field for a very small time, right? Here you can see the lower plots. Those are between polarization and electric field. So electric field units are kilovolt per centimeter and polarization are microcoulomb per centimeter square, right? So with increase in the applied field, you will see the saturated loops, sorry, the particular loops, their area is also increasing. So these are the particular palettes we have made in our lab, and this is the SCM micrographs of the top surface, which is showing the grains. So this is the assembly that is prepared in TBRL. Our purpose is just to prepare the sample, characterize the sample, and hand it over to the TBRL. And in further TBRL, they are using this type of assembly. They are using different gauges to measure the pressure. This is the particular assembly they have developed and measured the signal in the oscilloscope, but somehow we are not able to generate a very high voltage because the voltage generated is not too high. But still people are working. We are also working on this to make such kind of device for DRD. Yeah, so that is up to the PZT that we have worked in our lab. But in basically the 21st century is known as the century for environmental management. And in 2006, European community started the restrictions on the use of certain hazardous substances. And in those hazardous substances, lead is one of the main thing, right? So lead-free piezo ceramics are developed in 1999. People have started working on it, but after the imposition of these particular restriction, they have started working in a very rapid way. Nowadays, most of the people are working on this lead-free material. As I already told you, like barium titanate, potassium sodium niobate, barium strontium titanate, and their different solid solutions which do not contain the lead component. So now I'm going to start the work that my PhD students done in the lab. So this is the first lead-free material that we have worked in our lab. So we have synthesized lead-free non-toxic BZT BCT. So BZT is barium zirconium titanate and BCT is barium calcium titanate. The solid solution of these two different materials is known as BZT BCT. And what was our aim to develop? So we have to fulfill our objective for one more DRDO sponsored project to achieve the D33 value nearly 400 for this material, right? So after achieving this high value of D33 in these materials, we have also studied its energy storage efficiency. So I am coming to that part. So how we synthesize these materials, that is the simple solid state reaction technique. We have take the raw materials. Raw materials are basically oxides. Like for barium titanate, we use barium oxide, titanium oxide. For this BZT, we barium oxide, zirconium oxide, titanium oxide. Mixing and milling them. So we have ball mill machine in which we mix and mill them. And then we have to calcine that. Calcination temperature is the temperature at which we can remove the impurities from the material. And after the calcination, again, we have to remix and remill. And after remilling, we can shape the powders in the form of pellets. So we have pellet making machine. So under the application of high pressure, we can convert that powder into pellet by adding one binding agent that is known as PVA, polyvinyl alcohol. And after getting the pellet shapes, we have to sinter them. Why sintering is required? To make the sample solid, means there should be no porosity. So it should be means porosity should be very low, but in some applications there should be porosity required, but particularly in this one there no porosity should be required. So after sintering, again we can post process means we can paste the silver paste, heat them for at some temperature, and then we use them for electrical characterization. So after mixing and milling and calcination, we can take the XRD, X-ray diffraction pattern, so that we can judge the crystal structure. Or after sintering, again, we can take some part of the pellet and again do the XRD to confirm the crystal structure. So in this case, we took four compositions, 0.48, 0.49, 0.5 and 0.51 for PCT. And these are the X-ray diffraction patterns. Very good X-ray diffraction patterns we have observed here. But when we magnify one particular peak near 32 degree, so for four different compositions, if you magnify this peak, you will get that is not a single peak. That is the combination of two peaks or three peaks. You can see it here. But particularly for 0.5, x is equal to 0.50, there are clear-cut two peaks, one corresponding to 002 and one corresponding to 200, right? So what it shows basically the combination of different peaks merged in one peak, that is showing the combination of different phases. So particularly in this one, we have observed rhombohedral and orthorhombic phases. And this is the SCM micrographs of these particular BZT, BCT ceramics for different compositions. So what we observe with increase in BCT means barium calcium titanate. So basically we are replacing zirconium with calcium, and calcium has smaller size than barium. Okay, we are doping this calcium at barium side, and because of that, the grain size got reduced. So you can see in every SCM micrograph, we have shown the histograms for the grain size, right? So what we observed, that is for point x is equal to 0.50, it is nearly 8 micron, or for other compositions, it is more than 10 micron. Then we measured the dielectric constant with temperature variation. So why this type of characterization is required? To see the Curie temperature, right? As well as to see some sort of structural distortion. So in this particular plots, these are the plots at different frequencies we took, right? And in the inset, we have shown the dielectric loss with temperature. And what we observed that at 40 degrees C for all compositions, there is a change in the structure. There is a very small anomaly that is shown by arrow. That is the change from rhombohedral to tetragonal, right? And this plays very important role for in these crystals, the structural heterogeneity, to get the MPB, that is morphotropic phase boundary, that is the combination of different phases. So these are the plots between polarization and electric field. So you can see that in one plot, we change the field and the applied field from 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 kilovolt. And you can see with the increase in the applied field, the plot between polarization and field is also increasing. At lower strength, that is at 10 kilovolt per centimeter, you can see the black curve, which is not seen clearly, but its saturation polarization is also very less. And at 30 kilovolt per centimeter, when you go, the saturation polarization is very high. That is nearly 24 microcoulomb per centimeter square, right? So the compositions are very good, means good ferroelectrics we can achieve. So the main objective is to get the D33. D33 is the piezoelectric coefficient. And what our aim was to get the value nearly 400. But what the value we have achieved for x is equal to 0.50, that is 512. So that fulfilled our objective. And this particular material, people have reported nearly 600. But when we started the work in our lab, we tried a lot to go beyond 400, but somehow we are not able to go. But then we change the synthesis method, and after changing the synthesis method, means getting the help from the SSPL, that is Solid State Physics Lab of DRDO at New Delhi. They suggested some modifying methods, and we used them, and we got this high value. So in the same material, we studied for them for energy storage applications, right? So for energy storage applications, basically we need the relaxer type. As I already told you, that relaxers are those materials in which the hysteresis loop is very slim. As compared to good ferroelectric, the hysteresis loop is very slim. So we cannot say that these are not good ferroelectrics. These are also good ferroelectrics for different applications. In this case, the retentivity and coercivity are very low, right? And the red area, that is the area of the loop, that shows the loss, right? As you already know for the magnetic materials. And the green shaded area, that is the recoverable energy storage, right? This is very important these days because we are means a lot of people are working on electrochemical supercapacitors, right? And they want to generate some voltage. But similarly, in these type of materials, we can also generate huge voltages, right? So these materials can also be used as solid state supercapacitors. So what we did again, so here in this case, we did prepare some compositions with large difference in X, that is 0.4, 0.45, 0.5, 0.55. and the structure is coming out to be similar as that of the previous one. You can see from XRD. So what different thing we observed here, that is the temperature dependent dielectric properties. So we did the temperature dependent dielectric properties for 4 different compositions, and what we observe that for x is equal to 0.4 and x is equal to 0.55 shows the paraelectric phase at room temperature. If you will see minutely in the plots, around 25 degrees C, there is small hum. We can assume that there is small hum. Otherwise, in the compositions, x is equal to 0.45 and x is equal to 0.5, you can see the hum for 0.45 is nearly 110, and for 0.5 it is at 100, right? You can also see the hum size. In 0.45 it is very sharp, but in the case of 0.5 it is broadened, right? So these type of structural changes, basically this type of dielectric anomaly means the dielectric variation with temperature shows the structural changes, and these structural changes are very important for us. So as I told you that we have observed the structural change, sorry, what in the I want to show you again for x is equal to 0.4 and x is equal to 0.55, right? So we observe the paraelectric phase at room temperature. So when we did the polarization with electric field, what we observe, this loop is very slimmer. The loops observed are very slim as compared to 0.45. You can see here in the second plot, and then 0.5. Their loop area is more as compared to 0.55, right? So as I already shown you the figure, the area under the curve for the green area, that is for your energy storage efficiency, and what we observe, that is nearly 76% we observe in this particular material, which is a good signal to work more on these type of materials by doping some sort of dopants which increase this efficiency up to 90, more than 90%, right? The second student of mine is working on this pyroelectric investigations of these lead-free barium titanate materials. So she used the same method of preparation, that is solid state reaction, and she observed the enhanced pyroelectric behavior. So I'm coming to that one. So in this case, what type of material she used? She used the strontium doping in barium titanate. Sorry, strontium and zirconium doping in barium titanate, right? And she also used PMMA as means usually we use the PVA as binding agent. In this we have also used the PVA as binding agent, but she also put some PMMA. PMMA is polymethyl methacrylate, right? A polymer. So why she put that material? She put that material and pressed that into pellets and then centered at 700 degrees. And what she observed at 700 degrees C, that PMMA burnt out. And because of that PMMA burning, it creates pores in the material, in the pellet. So the pellet becomes porous, right? And after 700 degrees C, again she sintered for final sintering at 1450 for 4 hours. So what was the purpose? The purpose was to create the porous structure, means pores in the material, right? So she prepared 5 different samples. The first figure shows the all the XRD patterns, and the rest of the figure shows the XRD patterns of different compositions with Rietveld refinement. And you can see that in the Rietveld refinement, the observed chi-square values are less than 1.5, which is a good signal, but except this x is equal to 5%. Otherwise, for all, she obtained a chi-square value less than 1.5. That shows very good fitting. So these are the parameters she observed from the Rietveld refinement. So you can see clearly here for x is equal to 0 and x is equal to 10%. For x is equal to 0, there is no porosity, but for x is equal to 10%, you can see the porosity. Both are at the same magnification, that is 100 times. You can see the bar size, that is 100 micron. So in the 0%, there are no pores. For 10%, you will get the porous structure that is clearly visible from the SCM, scanning electron microscope. And further, by characterizing between the polarization and the electric field, what they observe, where the porosity is 0%, that has the highest saturation polarization. With increase in the porosity, the saturation polarization also decreases, as well as the remnant retentivity and coercivity, both are decreased, right? So with increase in porosity, retentive field as well as coercive field, both are decreasing. And what we observed in the case of dielectric constant is also reduced with the increase in the porosity. Dielectric constant is also reduced with increase in the porosity, as clearly observed here. For x is equal to 0, you will have the black curve, and for x is equal to 10%, you have the green curve, right? For x is equal to 10, nearly at 350, you have the dielectric constant nearly 9500, and for x is equal to 10%, it is less than 2000. So these are different figures of merit she observed for these materials to show that these are very good pyroelectrics. But from these parameters, you will not be able to judge that why it is better, because we have to go in depth with the different formulas and relations. But somehow in this he has mentioned that the 5% x is equal to 5% is the best one for these pyroelectric measurements, pyroelectric character basically. So it means what? It means that x is equal to 10% has the maximum porosity, 5% is in between, and 0% has no porosity. So beyond a limit of porosity, you will not get the good properties. So you have to optimize the porosity, that it should be near 5% or nearly 5%, not more than very more than 5% and not very much less than 5%. So you have to optimize the synthesis by characterizing the materials. Third student who is working on the lead-free sodium bismuth titanate ceramics. So he is basically working on these type of lead-free ceramics to get high D33 value, as well as he wants to make the composite of these ferroelectrics with ferrites. So ferroelectric is a material which we can characterize using the applied electric field to get the polarization, and ferrites are the materials in which we apply the magnetic field to get the induced magnetization. So he is basically working on the composites, but the main component is sodium bismuth titanate. So he used the same solid state reaction method to synthesize sodium bismuth titanate, but he used the Solgen method to synthesize the nickel ferrite. So nickel ferrite he used as a magnetic material. So initially what he did, he took the NBT, that is sodium bismuth titanate, and took its XRD and got the rhombohedral phase, fitted with the Rietveld refinement, good refinement he observed, chi-square nearly 1. Then he take the dielectric properties, above 300 it is showing the ferroelectric to paraelectric behavior, and dielectric loss is very less, and you can see the dielectric constant is nearly 1400 at 100 Hertz. This is the SCM micrograph of this NBT, in which you can see the grain size is nearly 7.2 micron. And these are the ferroelectric loops between polarization and electric field. Very good ferroelectric loops he observed. Then he took the properties for this nickel ferrite, which is a magnetic material. So XRD pattern of nickel ferrite he observed, the cubic phase, and then he took the magnetization. So he the plot between the induced magnetization and the applied magnetic field. He again got very slim hysteresis loop, but with high saturation magnetization. Then he took the composite of these two, right? So in the black, in the XRD pattern, you can see the different compositions, pure NVT, then 10% nickel dope, 15% nickel dope, 20 and 25% dope. And what you have observed, there is a change in the peaks. You can see nearly 32 degree. There is the shift in the peaks. So why this shift is coming into the picture? Because of this composition. You are combining the two materials. And then he took the magnetization of the composite. Now I am talking about the composite. Composite means the combination of this bismuth, sodium bismuth titanate and nickel ferrite. And what he observed for pure sodium bismuth titanate, the magnetic behavior is nearly diamagnetic, but with increase in the nickel doping, the magnetic features that come into the picture. And for 25%, it is showing not a very good ferromagnetic loop, but not a very bad ferromagnetic loop. So it is showing the weak ferromagnetic behavior of the composites of sodium bismuth titanate and nickel ferrite. And then he took the composition, ferroelectric loops for this composition. Not the first plot. The second plot is for the this one. That is the composite. So first one is for x is equal to 0, that is the pure sodium bismuth titanate, and the second plot is with x is equal to 0.10, right, with 10% nickel doping at different electric fields he observed, and he observed the good values of the ferroelectric behavior. So we can say that in the composites also we have induced a small magnetization, but ferroelectric behavior is good. Then he took the leakage current. Leakage current is basically showing that your behavior is changing from dielectric to conducting, right? So you observe some conduction there, but very low value of the leakage currents you observe. And that is basically due to what? That is basically due to of the magnetic doping, that is nickel. So what important he did in this case, he measured the magnetocapacitance. Magnetocapacitance means he observed the capacitance with the applied magnetic field. And he observed the maximum magnetocapacitance in the case of 25% nickel doped. For 10%, it is in between. For 15 and 20%, it is not showing good behavior. So again, we have to optimize here that how the composition or which composition is good for different. So magnetocapacitance is showing the multiferroic behavior. Multiferroic means ferromagnetic as well as ferroelectric. Both ferro orders are coexisting in these type of compositions. So the fourth student is working on this magnetoelectric composites. So magnetoelectric, that is similar to that of the multiferroic, in which there are two orders, but in this case, in the magnetoelectric is the composition of ferroelectric and magnetoresistive material. Magnetoresistive means if you apply the magnetic field, the dimensions of the magnetic material will change. That is known as magnetoresistive. And ferroelectric or piezoelectric means if you apply the pressure, it will generate some voltage or vice versa. So the combination of these two magnetoresistive and piezoelectric materials, that is known as magnetoelectric. So what is the importance of these type of materials? Suppose if your material is the combination of these two different orders, that is magnetostrictive and piezoelectric. So when you apply the electric field, what will happen? When you apply the electric field, the dimensions of the piezoelectric material will change. So when it changes, it will also change the dimensions of the magnetostrictive material, right? But that one is the converse. So sorry, first I have to tell you the direct one. In the direct one, if you apply the magnetic field, what will happen? When you apply the magnetic field, the dimensions of the magnetic resistive material will change. So it is in combination with the piezoelectric. So what will happen? It will further induce the change in the dimensions of piezoelectric material. And because of that, what will happen? It will further generate some voltage. So by applying the magnetic field, you can generate voltage. By applying the magnetic field, you can generate voltage. Why? Because the combination of these two materials. So those are known as direct magnetoelectric effect. And vice versa, one is the converse one. So this is the schematic of showing this one. So in this work, one of my scholar, she has prepared the BZT BCT composition and nickel zinc ferrite by Solgel and take the combination of these two. So this is the one. This one is the DST sponsored project in which we are working on this. So what was our aim? Our aim was to prepare the laminates. Basically, we have to prepare the laminates in which bilayer means one layer is of ferromagnetic material and one is of ferroelectric material. Ferromagnetic, not ferrite material and ferroelectric material. And tri-layer means we have to sandwich the two ferroelectric layers with one magnetic material or vice versa. So this is the XRD plots for BCZT. BCZT is BZT, BCT basically. So she prepared the samples by two techniques, Sol-Gel and solid state. So you can see in the case of the samples prepared by Sol-Gel, the peaks are a little bit broadened, which indicates the small particle size. But in the case of solid state, you can see the very sharp. You can see the sharp peaks. That means the grain size is bigger. Then this is the XRD plot for nickel zinc ferrite by Sol-Gel as well as solid state, but here we will not observe such a large change in the particle size. So in the BCZT, the dielectric constant with temperature shows the anomaly near 100. That is the change from ferroelectric to paraelectric behavior. So its Curie temperature is nearly 100 degrees C. And it is the ferroelectric loop for BCZT material. Very good ferroelectric properties were observed. So that is nearly 17 microcoulomb per centimeter square under the applied field. And why these materials are important? Because they are not containing the lead, the requirement of the world now. So this is the MH curve for nickel zinc ferrite. We can see very high saturation magnetization, nearly 60 mu per G per gram at very low field, right? Now you can see the particulate composite. Particulate composite means we are not preparing the laminates. We are just mixing the powder of ferroelectric and ferrite. So here at the bottom of this figure, the lowest mode XRD pattern is for nickel zinc ferrite. So it has some particular peaks. And then the red curve is for BCZT. Then blue one is for the composite of these one for X is equal to 0.2 and 0.3 and 0.4. So here you can see the different peaks, separate peaks basically for ferrite and ferroelectric material, right? So that means that is a composite, right? So if somehow you will not be able to get the different peaks, the characteristic peaks of ferrite and ferroelectric, it means they have generated or they have formulated some new structure in the material. So here it is clearly seen that they have not generated any new structure, just they are composites. So she took the dielectric properties of the composites. So it is showing the dielectric constant a very good value for means X is equal to 0.4, nearly 9,000. Then this is the ferroelectric loops. So for X is equal to 0.4, it is showing lossy loop. For X is equal to 0.2, it is showing some good behavior. Then these are the composites MH curve. You can see that the magnetization reduced from 60 to nearly 25 because of the ferroelectric component came into the picture. So the magnetocapacitance, which shows the multiferrite behavior, means both type of orders are existing in this one. Yeah, this is one important parameter that is known as magnetoelectric coupling. Magnetoelectric coupling, basically in the first slide of this particular topic of magnetoelectric, I told you that when you apply the magnetic field, you generate some voltage, right? So means magnetic and electric coupling. It should be very high. By applying a small magnetic field, you can generate a high voltage, or by applying a very small voltage, you can generate a high change in the magnetostrictive dimensions. So these can be used in various sensors. So these are the layered composites we have prepared in our lab, and we are working on it to achieve the DST objectives. So these are the few facilities I have in my lab. This one is the impedance analyzer from Keysight. We have procured it from DRDO project. And these are the sample holders. On the right hand side, you can see the image in which one sample holder is for bulk material and the second one is for thin films. And we can measure the dielectric constant with temperature. This is one more dielectric analyzer we have, that is known as Hioki. It is a very old model, but still it is working and giving us good results. This is the polarization versus electric field hysteresis loop measurement setup we have. This is indigenous, made up of Marine India. And on the right side, you can see the DC polling unit. Polling unit means by applying the electric field, you can align the dipoles in one particular direction. This is one electrometer we have in our lab that is procured under DRDO project. One D33 meter we have. D33, I already told you that after applying the pressure, how much charge is developed on the sample. You can measure it, and the units are picocoulomb per meter. This is one electromagnet we have from up to 1.5 Tesla, because we have to apply the magnetic field and measure the magnetoelectric coupling. This is one spin coater we have in our lab. This is the uniaxial press we have to make the pellets from powders, and on the right hand side are the dies to make the pellets from the powders. These are some furnaces we have in our lab which can go up to 1400 degrees C. This is the tube furnace we have. This is one small muffle furnace we have for just calcination purposes up to 1100 degrees C. And this is the new one we have purchased which can go up to 1700 degrees C, and it is a very good furnace from Carbolite. And this is the one ball mill unit recently we have purchased in DST project for mixing and milling of the powders. And this is one lock-in amplifier we have purchased and connected that with the electromagnet to measure the magnetoelectric coupling. So this unit is again we have purchased from the DST project. These are my students: Rajat Syal, who is SRF in DRDO project; Mehak Agarwal, she is JRF CSIR; and Rahul Goyal, who is Institute JRF. Pankudi Bansal is JRF in DST project. And these are my collaborators who always help me in different characterizations: Professor Ashish Garg from IIT Kanpur, Professor Rajiv Ranjan from IIC Bangalore, Professor Dr. O.P. Thakur from SSPL New Delhi, and Dr. Gyaneshwar Sharma from TDPG College Jaunpur, who is basically helping us in writing the critical reviews or critical papers. And I am also thankful to my funding agencies like ER and IPR, DRDO, SERP, DST, TBRL Chandigarh, UGC DAE, and as well as the PEC Chandigarh, who gave me the seed grant to start the research in my particular. So with this, I want to thank you all for patiently listening my lecture. So if you have any questions, you can ask me. Anyone, if have any questions, they can ask me.
Hello.
Hello,
Sir. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, sir.
good afternoon, good afternoon.
Sir, I have one question. So
Yeah.
from DE loop, so how to calculate energy storage and loss and efficiency?
Okay, so basically from the PE loop, as I already told you, so there are different mathematical formulations are required in Origin software. I think you have used the Origin software.
Sir, just now I started my research.
Okay. Then you have to go through some reviews and you have to know how to use the mathematical equations in Origin software to calculate the area under the curve.
Okay, sir.
Right? By calculating the area under the curve and dividing by different terms, you can get the energy storage as well as energy loss or different parameters and figure of merits. So first of all, I suggest you that you should go through some review papers, right?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
And then you can start.
Okay, thank you, sir.
If you need my help, you can mail me. We will try to help you at our
Okay.
best.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, Ritanjali. Thank you. Any other participants? I think I have bored you people a lot. Or you have understood everything? Yeah, Professor Bichania. Any questions from any participants? I think my students are also attending this lecture.
हेलो
हाँ जी सर,
हाँ जी
तो मैंने खत्म कर दिया तो हाँ मैंने खत्म कर दिया पार्टिसिपेंट्स
एक्चुअली आई वाज इन अ मीटिंग सो आई
ओके
कुड नॉट अटेंड योर लेक्चर
जी जी तो मैं पूछ रहा था पार्टिसिपेंट से, तो पार्टिसिपेंट्स को या तो कुछ समझ में नहीं आया
नहीं आया वो
या समझ में आ गया।
सब फैकल्टी मेंबर्स हैं
अच्छा 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 हाँ, फैकल्टी मेंबर्स दे कैन आस्क एनीथिंग दे वांट।
एनीबॉडी वांट टू क्वेश्चन ओके नो प्रॉब्लम सर थैंक यू सर वेरी मच है
Yeah, thank you Professor Ruchania for giving me opportunity. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you to all participants for listening me carefully with patience. Thank you very much. So I am just leaving, sir.
ओके थैंक यू सर वेरी मच है
Okay, bye sir, bye.
हैं